Good morning, friends. It's me, your boy Max Mogren, reporting live for you from the studio here in beautiful Alpine, Wyoming. This is Wake Up Wyoming. Here at Wake Up News, February 18th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wait for an audience to build. Let's get right into it. Wake Up News, as usual, our reach is diminishing. Looks like our headline. We're officially live. But, our likes going down, our reach going down. Sad to see. It is what it is. Facebook algorithms. Top story today locally. Sadly, yesterday, an avalanche killed a skier just out of bounds at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. 30-year-old Alexander James Mara from Orem, Utah. So, real bummer there. Happened at Ralph Slide in Rock Springs between Zero G and M&M. Those that know, not a place where you really want to ski. What's up, Joel Cleveland? What's up, Jonathan Hogrelius? Thank you so much for tuning in. What's up, David Coco Rico? The man crush in full effect here today. Thank you so much for tuning in, all of you. But condolences to the family of Alexander James Mara from Orem, Utah. Died in an avalanche yesterday, just out of bounds at Jackson Hole Mountain Resort. Today, avalanche danger high in the Tetons. I spend a lot of time out skiing in the backcountry, but today I know better. I'm laying low. A lot of snow recently, 12 inches reported up at the resort with really strong winds out of the southwest, averaging 33 miles per hour, gusting to 71. High Avi danger, more snow on the way. So be safe if you're out there. Dangerous avalanche conditions exist, and travel on avalanche terrain is not recommended today. BT Avalanche Center has issued an avalanche warning through 6 p.m. tonight. The National Weather Service has issued a winter storm warning through 5 p.m. Yesterday, skier died in an avalanche. YDOT fired the gas exits on Teton Pass. Large slide out of Glory Bowl. It closed the road. Teton Pass will be closed most of the day. Warmer today, and dangerous avalanche conditions. So stay safe if you're out there playing in the backcountry. Me, I'm going to get some work done instead. Keeping all of you abreast with the news to the best of my ability. Good morning, Blair Koenig. Good morning, Sabrina Ponce. Good morning, Carrie Mark. Good morning, Scott Watson. Good morning, Mike Giles. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks for liking. Thanks for sharing. As usual, we're looking at the news links from Rice Farmer. He's a couple days behind here, but we covered all that. And from our friends over there at nakedcapitalism.com. Interestingly, in the mainstream, just have to show you this. The new Cold War. Sorry to be a bit heavy on this topic, but it's drowning out everything else. He's thrown the topics into three buckets: warmongering, technical, analytical, and critical, talking about the whole Russiagate nonsense. There's just no shortage of headlines on this, which is sad. Moving along, this just looking at the mountain snowpack as of February 1st. We're doing pretty well up here in the Tetons, but the drought, the unusually warm conditions, seriously impacting the Southwest, California, Southern Oregon, Nevada, Utah, Southern Colorado. Sad to see, this is going to be an issue in the spring when water supplies are dwindling. Again, we live in the era of geoengineered weather, right? The weather's screwed up for a reason. Moving on to, that's my Patreon. We don't need to get into that. Big thanks to Sue Green for donating. $3 a month. Moving on to the Florida shooting. I haven't really been covering this too extensively. I've been keeping an eye on it, but the bottom line is the mainstream media takes situations like this, runs with it, turns the public dialogue, turns the public consciousness onto issues like gun control and things. And we don't really know exactly what happened, but there are definitely some strange inconsistencies in the official story, which we'll get into. Most importantly, a lot of mainstream, or not most importantly, but equally important, the mainstream consistently citing this statistic about 17 or 18 school shootings in the first 45 days of 2018. Of course, there hasn't been much coverage of any of them except for this last one because that statistic is total bunk. Even the Washington Post, a controlled mainstream corporate entity owned by Jeff Bezos of Amazon.com, acknowledging that statistic is severely flawed. There haven't been 18 school shootings in 2018. That number is flat wrong. Coming out of the Washington Post, people citing the heck out of this But by Wednesday night, the top suggested search after typing 18 into Google was 18 school shootings in 2018. It is a horrifying statistic, and it is wrong. Every town is a gun. Every town for gun safety is like a gun control lobbying group. Has long inflated its total by including incidents of gunfire that are not really school shootings. Take, for example, what it counted as the year's first. On the afternoon of January 3rd, a 31-year-old man who had parked outside a Michigan elementary school called police to say he was armed and suicidal. Several hours later, he killed himself. The school, however, had been closed for 7 months. There were no teachers. There were no students. Also listed on the organization's site is an incident on January 20th when at 1 a.m. a man was shot at a sorority event on the campus of Wake Forest University. A week later, at a basketball game that was being played at a Michigan high school, someone fired several rounds from a gun in the parking lot. No one was injured, and it was past 8 p.m., well after classes had ended for the day. But every town still labeled it a school shooting. Every town explains on its website that it defines a school shooting as any time a firearm discharges a live round inside a school building or on a school campus or grounds. Okay, so not necessarily a school shooting. That statistic about 18 school shootings is severely cooked. Moving on, of course, naturally, what is the public dialogue in the wake of this event? Again, horrifying situation. But, of course, the kids calling for gun control, right? I don't know. I think that there are no shortage of guns out there already. And if people really want to get their hands on a gun, they can, regardless of what the law says. So no surprise there. The mainstream's response is gun control, gun control, gun control. Interestingly, in the wake of this shooting, sorry, this is taking a while to load up. Just like Sandy Hook, the Sandy Hook shooting, widely regarded as a staged event. No shortage of critical analysis of that. I did some of that myself, looking deep into that situation. But, of course, they're going to tear down the building where this took place, just like they did with the Sandy Hook Elementary School, destroying any evidence that may be visible in the building. So no big surprise there. One guy based out of Florida, Harold Save, retired hospital administrator who has devoted his life to exposing false flags and the chemtrail/geoengineering agenda, has put out some good analysis on this, published on the 15th and being updated regularly over at chemtrailsplanet.net. Harold Save, tireless researcher. Yeah, they're going to destroy the building. Really interesting interviews with students. These students admit that there was a fake gun drill going on simultaneously. We're told police would do a fake code red with fake guns. This sheriff down in that part of Florida, kind of sketchy. Interestingly, a lot of mainstream media reporting in advance the shooting. Maybe they just backdate the article a day early so they can get higher rankings for it. But bottom line, these articles posted apparently the day before the shooting, which is kind of odd. But again, maybe they just do that on the back end to make it look like they broke the story. Lots of great comments here. Yeah. People are really chiming in. Thank you so much. But again, the Florida shooting, I don't want to devote too much of your time or my time to it. Here's a good read over at stateofthenation2012.com about the situation in Florida. I'm going to paste that one into the links. Definitely a problem with gun violence in America. But at the same time, there's, where does it come from? And will taking guns out of the hands of law-abiding citizens really solve the problem? Probably not. Probably not. Moving on. This is an interesting read out of Hacker Noon, talking about Facebook data. A lot of people jump and ship from Facebook. I'm in the process of it, trying to move over to Steam. But at the same time, here at Facebook is where I can build the biggest audience, despite their algorithms, despite the fact that when you share this video, odds are not that many people are going to see it. But this is a good read. I'm going to paste it in. He talked about how Facebook stores all of your information since you created your account, and you can actually download a file of that and see. It knows everything. It knows your past relationships. It knows where you log in, when you log in, and it holds on to that forever. Even every time you post an image on Facebook, it even tells, it stores where that picture was taken with the exact latitude, longitude, the IP address you uploaded it from, what you took it with, so on and so forth. So pretty wild, pretty creepy. Facebook allegedly said that its image recognition models could recognize human faces with 98% accuracy, and then it could identify a person in one picture out of 800 million in less than 5 seconds. No shortage of information there. So this is a good read. I pasted that one in. Do check that one out if you feel so inclined. Interesting stuff about, no big surprise there. We all know Facebook. The CIA has their fact book about all the countries in the world, and now they have their Facebook too. So this is a good read. Pasted it in if you want more reasons to get off of Facebook. Interestingly, in Belgium, a country that takes its privacy of its citizens a little more seriously than the United States, they're telling Facebook to stop tracking people who don't actually use their service. Facebook has been ordered to stop tracking people without consent by a court in Belgium. The company has been told to delete all the data it gathered on people who did not use Facebook. The court ruled the data was gathered illegally. Belgium's privacy watchdog said Facebook had broken privacy laws by placing tracking codes known as cookies on third-party websites. So Facebook even tracking people that don't even have Facebook accounts. Pretty wild. What's up, Joe Cleveland? Thanks for tuning in, brother. What's up, Jonathan Hogrelius? Thank you for tuning in. Josh Andres chiming in. What's your take on the 13 Russians? Are you talking about the Russians in Syria? Lindsay Sartain, guns definitely kill people. What the fuck is this dumbass saying that everyone keeps saying? Of course guns kill people. That's their one and only purpose. That's one way to look at it, Lindsay, but at the same time, it's like we live within this corrupt government. The United States, the U.S. military, the largest polluter on the planet, the largest terrorist organization on the planet, and the largest arms dealer on the planet. So disarming the American populace when we're all subjected to that control system over the top of us, probably not a good idea. But, in the wake of disasters like the one in Florida, of course, the natural response is, we got to just get rid of all the guns. Unfortunately, it's not really going to work. Hate to say it. I'd love to live in a world where there weren't any guns. I'd love to live in a world where there weren't military industrial complexes lording over us all, perpetuating endless wars of terror all over the world, intimidating and harassing citizens with militarized police forces. But, taking all the weapons away from the citizenry is not going to solve the problem. Joel Cleveland chiming in, the USA will never get rid of guns, so give it up. Again, back to Facebook, the gun topic, very divisive. Lindsay, I know you and I agree on so many things, and it's fine that we disagree about some things. Maestro, what's the matter? Oh, dog is on patrol, keeping us safe here in the studio. Yeah, good girl. So anyway, moving on. If you are tired of Facebook, do take a look over there at steemit.com. It is a decentralized blockchain. Let's see. And Mabel with a big solution there. Apparently, I don't have time to read all that. But back to Facebook, Steemit, decentralized blockchain crypto social network that actually lets people get paid in cryptocurrencies if they post and their posts are successful. I'm trying to make the move over there. I got 45 followers, and I'm going to keep it rolling along over there at Steemit. So do follow me over there if you would. Moving along, speaking of tech news, loading up here. Interestingly, the iPhone, big bug in the operating system on the iPhones. Basically, if somebody sends you one particular character in the Indian language, the Apple iOS Springboard will crash once the message has been received. Messages will no longer open as the app is trying and failing to load the character. And it appears that the only way to regain access of your iMessages is to have another friend send you a message and try to delete the thread that contained the bad character. So shows how vulnerable tech really is. when just receiving a message with a character can take out your messaging capabilities on your iPhone. This coming from The Verge, published on February 15th. Speaking of tech stuff as well, over there at Motherboard Vice, this is kind of creepy. You know, people, we showed it on the last show, the robotic dogs coming out of Boston Dynamics, where they have the dogs walking around and the one opens the door with its little claw, lets the other one through. And, you know, there's the video of that. But even more creepy are these little microbots that can kind of roll around. They're a millimeter in size, you can see, compared to a penny. Extremely small, and they're talking about the potential to use these to deliver drugs and so forth. Interesting stuff. Purdue engineers hope to use the robots as a targeted drug delivery vector with biomedical payloads packed into the central module and directed to a specific location within the body. Okay, interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. But these little guys just roll along, and they're very small. So that's pretty wild. Moving along. Let's see. More tech news, more robotics news, drone news. This is kind of cool, actually, in a sense. But basically, this drone created by some former Google drone engineers. It's a self-flying camera that can follow you. It can dodge obstacles like trees and power lines and stuff. And pretty wild technology, rapidly increasing. Robotics, artificial intelligence, cloud computing, quantum computing like the D-Wave stuff, really disturbing. More tech news coming out of Matter over there at Medium. This is pretty wild. They go to a coffee shop with this hacker Dutch hacker, and basically he brings a little device and he's able to trick everybody's computers and laptops and phones to log into a fake Wi-Fi network that his device creates. It creates trusted devices. It names them after a previously logged into trusted Wi-Fi network, and people's phones and computers are apt to automatically log into a trusted Wi-Fi network. And this guy's able to basically take control over people's devices, steal their passwords, steal all their information, just sitting there innocently enough on a laptop in a coffee shop. So interesting read there. I'll paste that one in. Just important to note, especially if you're dealing with cryptocurrencies and stuff, how important your online security is, how important it is to make sure your settings are such that your phone won't automatically log into a trusted Wi-Fi network in a public place. Strange days. Moving along. What else? This is kind of funny, good news. Tractor hacking farmers are leading a revolt against big tech's repair monopolies. Interestingly, even in the farm world, John Deere tractors, in order to get, they got such high-tech high-tech computers on board, and they're designed, specifically designed that you need their software, you need their interface in order to work on a tractor now. So if you want to, your tractor breaks down, you have to take it into a approved repair shop, which is going to cost you a great deal of money, loading your tractor up onto a trailer, bringing it in. Basically, they got you by the short and curlies. And cool to see these farmers like this guy Schwarting going out of their way to work around the system and give people solutions to repair their equipment without having to spend an arm and a leg. I'll paste that one in because it's a good read. Shows how technology, can increase costs. It can make things way more difficult, but when people do a little bit of hacking, well, things, you can have the opposite effect as well. More farm news. Heartwarming story out of Poland. We'll talk about Poland a little more later. A cow escapes on its way to the slaughterhouse, smashes through a metal fence, breaks the arm of the man trying to catch her, and then swims to safety on an island in a lake. Bravo, cow. Well done. And it looks like they're going to let the cow live out its days peacefully on this island. There she is. Beautiful cow. On to the game. Knew it was en route to a slaughterhouse, so it took matters into its own hands. Kudos to the cow. Yeah. Industrial farming, heartbreaking thing to see. Critters killed. Moving along, BuzzFeed suing the DNC for proof they were hacked. Again, no real proof that the Russians hacked the DNC. I don't fall into the Republicans versus Democrats false, false narrative. Two wings of the same bird, so to speak, both screwing us over. So, this whole Russian hacking nonsense is still dominating the headlines, as we discussed a little earlier in the show. And it'd be interesting to see what happens here, but trying not to get caught up in that one too much. Tehran, shit up, yo, chiming in, shut your mouth. Thanks, Tehran. I think I'm going to keep talking, though. Appreciate you. Coming out of Handelsblatt Global, Big Data versus Big Brother, Germany heading towards a Chinese-style rating of citizen systems. China has been experimenting with a dystopian social credit system, which grades every citizen based on their behavior. The head of an expert panel argues that Germany is sleepwalking in the same direction. Interesting to see this trend continuing around the globe where people are rated. It's like a credit rating, except it's for your overall fitness as a citizen of a country. And China's been doing it. Now Germany getting into it as well. I'm sure there's something like that on the back end in the U.S. with our whole surveillance system. But so far, what will the world be like if in the future, you shared some opinions that are not sanctioned by the government, so you are less fit for a job or for government assistance or for housing or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So interesting trend there. Coming out of the Telegraph and various other sources, the Taliban has published an open letter to Americans telling them, hey, why don't you guys stop screwing up our country of Afghanistan? If you're not familiar with the whole situation in Afghanistan, we put the Taliban in power in Afghanistan when we kicked the Russians out of there back in the 80s. And in 2000, the Taliban got tired of growing all the opium for the world, so they made it illegal. They burned all the fields. And Afghanistan went from producing 90% of the world's opium in 2000 to producing less than 10% in 2001. Naturally, this was a big blow to Uncle Sam and his war on competition when it comes to drugs. So what did we do? We invaded Afghanistan under the false pretense of going after Osama bin Laden, the Saudi royal prince, a.k.a. Tim Osman, a CIA asset. And here we are in Afghanistan 17 years later, still controlling the global opium trade there. The Taliban has published an open letter to the American people calling on them to demand an end to the conflict in Afghanistan and to reject the inexperienced policies of President Trump and his warmonger advisors. Spokesman for the Taliban released copies of the 10-page document on Wednesday in several languages detailing insurgent gains and so-called failures of the illegitimate U.S.-led invasion, now in its 17th year. The authors write that they hope Americans will read this letter prudently and will evaluate the future of American forces and your profit and loss inside Afghanistan in light of the prevailing realities. They point out the continuing insurgency and the costs incurred, plus the increase of drug production. They also emphasize the loss of life. And the authors argue it is not the duty of America to draft laws and suggest systems for other countries. Ain't that the truth? They claim that the war in Afghanistan launched in 2001 under the influence of misleading propaganda by your officials has now lost international support and should be brought to a negotiated conclusion. The letter says, the American people, you proclaim to be a developed and civilized nation of the world. Since the imposed government in Afghanistan is established by you, therefore, we leave it to your judgment to decide, according to your logic and conscience, whether the present system and its pertinent changes, insecurity, chaos, and 87% increase in narcotics are reforms or crimes against humanity. Again, 87% increase in narcotics refers to the drastic increase in Afghanistan's opium production in the wake of the U.S. invasion and occupation. Again, the Taliban, widely decreed as a terrorist organization in the Western press, actually banned the cultivation of opium back in 2000. That's why we invaded. One of the reasons. Your authorities proclaim that tens of billions of dollars have been spent on various reconstruction projects in Afghanistan. Of course, that is the same money which is collected from you as taxes and revenues. But here it has been distributed among thieves and murderers. It goes on and on. If you want a copy of that whole letter, I got it here. A guy named Barrett R. Rubin copied and pasted it into Facebook. So I'm going to drop that into the comments there. Do check that out if you want to know what the Taliban thinks about the ongoing U.S. occupation of Afghanistan, resulting in increased opioid production by the war-torn country. Speaking of U.S. failures around the globe, Iraq is going to need $88.2 billion to rebuild in the wake of the war against ISIS, says their minister. Yeah, war sure is expensive. Wouldn't it be nice if we stopped fighting wars? I have to say. But, of course, the U.S. military industrial complex, not really switching gears, not really saying, hey, maybe this whole failed attempt at empire building around the world, maybe we should just give it a rest. Wouldn't that be nice? But over there in Venezuela, it looks like the U.S. is doing the opposite. Coming from consortiumnews.com, published on the 14th, the U.S. has employed all of its regime change tools in Venezuela, and although so far they have failed, there is still a chance that a military attack is in store, warned Kevin Zeese and Margaret Flowers. Several signals point to a possible military strike on Venezuela, with high-ranking officials and influential politicians making clear that it is a distinct possibility. Speaking at his alma mater, the University of Texas, on February 1st, Secretary of State Tillerson suggested a potential military coup in the country. Tillerson then visited allied Latin American countries, urging regime change and more economic sanctions on Venezuela, which is already suffering greatly. Tillerson is also reportedly considering banning the processing or sale of Venezuelan oil in the U.S. and is discouraging other countries from buying Venezuelan oil. It goes on and on. Mark Rubio, the Republican from Florida, openly called for a military coup in Venezuela. The world would support the armed forces in Venezuela if they decide to protect the people and restore democracy by removing a dictator, the former presidential candidate tweeted. How absurd. Remove an elected president with a military coup to restore democracy, right? Doublespeak. Does that pass the straight face test? The refrain of Rubio and Tillerson seems to be the nonsensical public position of U.S. policy. The U.S. has been seeking regime change in Venezuela since Hugo Chavez was elected in 98, 20 years ago. Trump joined Obama and Bush before him in continuing efforts to change the government and put in place a U.S.-friendly oligarch government. We're going to cover oligarchy later in the show today. No shortage of oligarchs running around in the world today. But important to note, Hugo Chavez, a leader of the people, by the people, for the people in Venezuela, died from a very fast-acting cancer a few years ago. Moving on. Let's see. What else do we got? So hopefully we don't invade Venezuela. Hopefully we let them just run their own country. Wouldn't that be nice? Recently we covered on Valentine's Day, before the shooting in the U.S., we covered the strike in Syria. Mainstream press in the U.S. reporting over 100 Russians killed. Russia telling us there were about 5 people killed, apparently private mercenaries. So that story, don't really know exactly what's going on there. But confirmed over there at Zero Hedge, 2 days after Bloomberg reported that over 100 Russian fighters, mercenaries fighting on behalf of Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, were killed in Syria on February 7th by U.S. airstrikes. The Russian Foreign Ministry slammed these reports about alleged dozens or hundreds killed Russian military servicemen as classic information that was launched by anti-government militants. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesman Maria Zakharova said that reports from both Reuters and Bloomberg that Russian servicemen were killed by U.S.-led coalition strikes stemmed from anti-government fighters in Syria who spread them accompanied by doctored images. The reports on the deaths of dozens, hundreds of Russians is classic disinformation, Zakharova said, who nonetheless admitted that some Russians did die, although in Moscow's official estimation, the number was far lower, no more than 5 people. Okay, again, these Russians who were killed, if any were killed, were mercenaries hired by the Syrian government fighting alongside Syrian forces against the U.S. occupation of Syria. So I don't know. But if you want to know who the Syrians want in their country, look no further than oilprice.com. Russia taking over Syria's oil and gas. In accordance with an energy cooperation framework agreement signed in late January, Russia will have exclusive rights to produce oil and gas in Syria. Before the onset of the blood-drenched civil war, Syrian oil production wavered around 380,000 barrels per day. It has declined for some time then, since its all-time peak production rate of 677 barrels per day in 2002. Although the Islamic State was allegedly driven underground, the current output still stands at a devastating 14 to 15,000 barrels per day. So the oil production was, 380 to 670,000 barrels per day. Now it's 15,000 barrels per day. Obviously, Syria taking a hit there due to the loss of revenue. But, the U.S. funded ISIS. We always talk, the mainstream press in the U.S. always talks about how we're fighting ISIS terrorists in Syria. They kind of missed the point, or they missed the actual fact that the U.S. actually created, funded, and supports ISIS in a proxy war against the democratically elected Syrian government. Coming out of CNBC, published on Valentine's Day, a little fear porn for you. Russia and China are developing destructive space weapons, U.S. intelligence warns. Okay, I think the U.S. has got those too. But it's just interesting. The FBI, CIA, and NSA are reporting on this. Luckily, well, I don't know if it actually matters, but all the way back in 1967, space-based weapons were banned by the UN Outer Space Treaty. Of course, the UN has also banned torture, but that doesn't stop enhanced interrogation techniques. The UN also banned weather warfare under the NMOD Treaty of 1978, but that doesn't stop people from playing God with the weather all over the world. Geoengineering climate change, creating droughts, floods, steering hurricanes, and generally just really messing with Mother Nature. Of course, all the way back in the 1940s, there were proposals to melt the Arctic to free up resources there for Russia and Canada and Greenland and all over the Arctic, and also to free up shipping routes there that are normally locked in ice, and also to make to melt the permafrost and increase the habitable land in northern Canada, Greenland, Siberia, and so forth. Now China, they want a polar Silk Road as well. The battle for the Arctic is on, and China getting in the game. China announced its official Arctic policy to the world late last month, promoting Beijing's ambitions for a region and raising fears about a Chinese takeover of the polar zone. But while the world's second largest economy, which self-identified as a near Arctic state in its new white paper, may have its own economic and foreign policy interest in mind, experts cautioned that doesn't mean a geopolitical standoff is coming. So there we go. Out of CNBC. Poland, we talked about that brave cow in Poland. Unfortunately, Poland struggles with killer smog. Coming out of phys.org, smog kills tens of thousands of Poles every year. Yet environmental activists say the right-wing government of the coal-loving nation has been dragging its feet on combating air pollution. Wouldn't it be nice if we could get off of fossil fuels? We don't need fossil fuels. Tesla figured out ways to generate unlimited electrical power using the electrical gradient between Earth's ionosphere and Earth's crust back in the 1890s. But here we are today, still burning coal. People still suffering from it. The Norwegians on the forefront of renewable energy. This is kind of cool. Floating wind farm put to the test. Norwegian energy major Statoil says its Hywind Scotland facility survived 100-mile-an-hour winds and 26-foot waves intact. This is a deep water offshore floating wind farm. Pretty wild, huh? Put to the test in high winds and strong seas. Their wind farm shows promise for deep water installations. During its first 3 months in service, the company's Hywind Scotland floating wind farm, the first of its kind, was put to the test and performed better than expected. Hurricane Ophelia in October pummeled the wind farm with 80-mile-per-hour winds, and 100-mile-per-hour winds were recorded 2 months later during Storm Caroline, which added to the test for the wind farm with 26-foot waves. The company showed the design could handle harsh weather conditions, but its actual performance was impressive, operating at about 65% of its total design capacity. Statoil said high wind performed better than its anchored counterparts. Knowing that up to 80% of the offshore wind resources globally are in deep waters where traditional bottom-fixed installations are not suitable, we see great potential for floating offshore wind in Asia, on the west coast of North America, and in Europe. Irene Rummelhoff, Executive Vice President of New Energy Solutions in Statoil, said in a statement. So cool to see the Scandinavians out there pushing forward innovation. Meanwhile, here in the U.S., seems like we are just going backwards. Carrie Mack chiming in, yay Norwegians. Yay Norwegians indeed. I've never been to Scandinavia, but it sure seems like they got their shit together a lot more than we do here in the good old U.S. OA. Moving on to the real news. Of course, they don't really cover geoengineering, but the important thing here is the climate change is costing billions of dollars annually. Insurance claims due to climate change related disasters reached a record $135 billion in 2017. That should be a big wake-up call to the insurance industry, says Carbon Tracker CEO Anthony Hobley. Okay, of course, like most mainstream coverage of the climate issues, the disaster capitalists behind climate change. If you want to read some good stuff on war, on natural disasters, on unnatural disasters, check out The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, documenting disaster capitalism. But key take home here is that all these storms, which could be prevented using existing technologies, are wreaking havoc all over the planet. This is a good long read. I have to admit, I didn't read all of it. But Silicon Valley billionaires are preparing for the apocalypse in New Zealand. If you're interested in the end of the world, you're interested in New Zealand. If you're interested in how our current cultural anxieties, climate catastrophe, aka geoengineering and weather warfare, decline in transatlantic political orders, resurgent nuclear terror, manifest themselves in apocalyptic visions, you're interested in the place occupied by this distant archipelago of apparent peace and stability against the roiling unease of the day. It's a real long read. I'll paste it in. But interestingly, a lot of, you make billions doing something, whether you're a Facebook founder spying on people or a Wall Street bankster printing money, loaning it into existence, charging interest, people jumping ship to New Zealand where, there aren't so many pesky humans. Speaking of catastrophes, coming from Nafiz Ahmed over there at Insurge Intelligence, published on the 13th. Financial Insiders, speaking of meltdowns, speaking of catastrophes, financial insiders are contemplating an imminent 2018 U.S. stock market crash of up to 50%. Okay, I think that's going to happen. That's my opinion. This isn't financial advice. I don't know for sure, but sure seems to be the trend we're on when you look at the coordinated tightening of the free money supply coming out of the central banks of the world. Of course, all these banks are not government entities. They're private, profit-driven banking cartels that work together, coordinated all over the world with the coordinated global recovery, aka the latest bubble. A new analysis published on the website of a London-based think tank funded by the world's biggest banking and financial services institutions warns that a U.S. stock market is on the brink of an imminent crash that could trigger another global recession. The document, by senior U.S. economist and former Hublin Norman Fellow at the Bank of England, is published on the website of the Center for the Study of Financial Innovation, which runs around 100 roundtable events a year involving financial services insiders from the UK and beyond. The document forecasts that in 2018, U.S. stock prices are likely to plummet by as much as 40 to 50%, compared to the less than 5% plunge in early February. That's right, we saw a little taste of that when on the 33rd day, a very symbolic number there, 33, on the 33rd day of 2018, the stock market, the Dow, took a 666-point drop, another very symbolic number there, before a couple thousand-point drops in the following week. And, I don't know what's going to happen. Let's see how the Dow's doing today. DGIA. The Dow's up 19 points on the day. Today, can't really trust it in the, it's always fluctuating. It's always rigged. But the key thing here, January 26th, topped out at 26,616 before it dropped to 2380 recently. Now it's back on the rise, but who knows where it's going to end up. Key thing here, though, is a lot of smart people are warning that it could plummet. The warning of 40 to 50% drop points to the prospect of a global financial crash worse than the 2008 banking collapse. It comes at a time when the Federal Reserve Bank of England and other authorities are looking to tighten up their cheap money policies as economic growth is supposedly at its highest levels since the 2008 slump. Okay, this goes on and on. I'll paste it in there, but key thing, if you're playing the stock market, do keep a close eye on it. Don't let the banks just steal all your money because that's what they do. They create bubbles and then they pop them. That's how it works. Of course, who's going to take the blame? Trumpo, the distractor-in-chief, the divider-in-chief, the deceiver-in-chief. Christine Lagarde over there at the IMF is warning us in New York Magazine, February 16, 2018. She warns that Trump's tax cuts could trigger a global race to the bottom. Okay. Last October, the IMF released a paper arguing that inequality was undermining global economic growth, and thus, contrary to supply-side dogma, developed nations did not need to choose between progressive tax policies and growth-enhancing ones. The United States could raise taxes on its wealthiest citizens and accelerate the growth of its GDP simultaneously. On the other hand, were advanced economies to cut taxes on the rich and consequently shift the burden of taxation onto ordinary citizens or cut public investment, they would risk reducing global growth. But Donald Trump didn't put too much stock in the advice of these globalist elites, and so the populist president pushed through a giant tax giveaway to America's corporations and super rich. Nonetheless, the IMF isn't done sounding the alarm about the baleful implications of Trump's tax policies, as Bloomberg reports. So bottom line, Trumpo's going to take the blame. Trumpo, he wouldn't be in the White House if he wasn't playing ball with the globalist agenda. I hate to say it. A lot of people think Trumpo is like this big messiah, but he's going to take the blame. And what's the solution going to be? More control, global government, perhaps a global currency. And that's what I think, but I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. So, good luck. Moving on. Coming from Chris Hedges over there at Truth Day, good real read about oligarchy. Oligarchic rule, as Aristotle pointed out, is a deviant form of government. Oligarchs care nothing for competency, intelligence, honesty, rationality, self-sacrifice, or the common good. They pervert, deform, and dismantle systems of power to serve their immediate interests, squandering the future for short-term personal gain. The true forms of government, therefore, are those in which the one or the few or the many govern with a view to the common interest. But governments that rule with a view to the private interest, whether of the one or the few or of the many, are perversions. Aristotle, smart guy that Aristotle wrote. The classicist Peter L.P. Simpson calls these perversions the sophistry of oligarchs, meaning that once oligarchs take power, rational, prudent, and thoughtful responses to social, economic, and political problems are ignored to feed what? Insatiable greed. The late stage of every civilization is characterized by the sophistry of oligarchs who ravage the decaying carcass of the state. Sounds like that's kind of where we're at in America these days, doesn't it? These deviant forms of government are defined by common characteristics, most of which Aristotle understood. Oligarchs use power and ruling structures solely for personal advancement. Oligarchs, though they state the deconstructing of administrative state, oligarchs, though they speak of deconstructing the administrative state, actually increase deficits. That's happening, under Trumpo's new plan. The deficit, the federal debt, now hovering around 21 trillion. Projected to be 25 trillion by 2020, 30 trillion by 2028. All your tax dollars, all the money the IRS, a private Delaware-based corporation, collects is just going to go to servicing the debt, putting money into the pockets of the private banking cartel, the Federal Reserve, no more federal than Federal Express, that somehow took control of our currency. Why? I don't know. I guess it's called oligarchy, the end of empire. Oligarchs, though they speak of deconstructing the administrative state, actually increase deficits and the size and power of law enforcement and the military to protect their global business interests and ensure domestic social control. The parts of the state that serve the common good wither in the name of deregulation and austerity. The parts that promote the oligarchs' power expand in the name of national security, economic growth, and law and order. Sounds like where we're at today, doesn't it? Chris Hedges, smart dude. Moving on here, the longer we are ruled by oligarchs, the deadlier our predicament comes, especially since the oligarchs refuse to address climate change. Come on, Chris. Come on, Chris. You should probably talk about weather warfare and geoengineering if you're going to talk about climate change. The greatest existential crisis to humankind, weather war. Indeed. The oligarchs have many mechanisms, including wholesale surveillance, to keep us in check. They will stop at nothing to maintain the sophistry of their rule. History may not repeat itself, but it echoes. And if we don't recognize these echoes and then revolt, we will be herded into the abattoirs that tyrannies set up at the end of their existence. Mark Perota chiming in here said, dude, what's up? How you doing, Mark? Thanks for tuning in. Where have you been? Haven't seen you in over a week or two now. Just stopped seeing your posts altogether. Well, Mark, I think my last show I did was on Valentine's Day. If you didn't see that one, it's still up there on Wake Up News. But, you can subscribe to notifications when we go live. I don't know if you're going to see them, though. A lot of people get in touch with me and say, yeah, I like Wake Up News. I subscribe to notifications, but it never tells me when you go live. So it is what it is. Again, I appreciate all you tuning in so much, all your comments, all your likes, all your shares. All of you that have subscribed, those of you that support me on patreon.com, thank you so much. I'm trying to do this as a full-time job, although I have to admit I'm kind of a ski bum too. When the snow's good, I like to go out and enjoy the outdoors, get away from the computer, get out there in the natural world. Encourage all y'all to do the same because the news is crazy. But the point I'm trying to make is, here on Facebook, kind of censored. So it is what it is. Joel Cleveland chiming in. It tells me every time. That's good to know. Joel not having any problems. Tony Ramsey chiming in. First time listener shared. Thank you, Tony, so much. Again, I can't help but notice when I go through there, I'll see, like 100 people share this, which is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. But when I go through those 100 shares, I notice only a handful of likes total. Strange. Speaking of oligarchy, moving on to Wall Street. And the infrastructure plan released by Trumpo. Again, oligarchs not really concerned about the public good, looking to line their pockets and those of their friends. Infrastructure plan, the $1.5 trillion infrastructure plan proposed by Trumpo is going to benefit profits for Wall Street. No big surprise there. And they're asking the question, is the private equity tail wagging the public infrastructure dog? Sure seems to be the case. If you haven't seen the movie, it's an old movie. I think it's from 1998, starring Dustin Hoffman and who else is in it? I think Al Pacino. No, not Al Pacino. Wag the Dog. If you've never seen that movie, it's a great movie. Kind of really lays out what's going on. 97. Great movie, Wag the Dog. If you've never seen it, starring Dustin Hoffman, Robert De Niro, Anne Hesh. Really kind of lets you know who's really in control in the country. And it ain't the president. It ain't Trumpo. Moving along, back to the infrastructure plan. Trump reportedly endorses a 25-cent hike in gas tax to pay for the infrastructure plan. This is a clear example of the average American citizen taking a big hit. You pay an extra 25 cents per gallon in gas to fund this infrastructure plan that people are concerned is just going to benefit Wall Street. Prime example of oligarchy at play. President Trump is reportedly open to raising the federal tax on gasoline and diesel by 25 cents per gallon to pay for the White House's infrastructure plan. The current taxes, which have not been raised in nearly 25 years, are 18.4 cents per gallon on gasoline and 24.4 cents for diesel per gallon. So prime example of passing the cost on to consumers for the profits of the oligarchs. Of course, here in the U.S., like in Canada, home prices hit records in almost 2/3 of U.S. cities. This is called a bubble, guys. The housing market is a bubble. Interestingly here, you get what happens? The cost of housing goes up. People are paying 30, 40, 50, 60% of their income just to keep a roof over their head. That's a world where the economy's flourishing, right? People are spending, working, spending, but the return on their the average cost of, the cost of existence goes up. The real purchasing power of your wages goes down. It's an economy where, first of all, it's all bubble driven, right? The only reason this real estate has value is because people decide it has value. And the average U.S. citizen's purchasing power goes down while the economy supposedly flourishes. Over there in the U.K., they got a similar problem. And millennial couples are making heartbreaking family decisions because of the housing market. Same shit here in the U.S. You can't afford, if you can barely afford to keep food on the table, let alone healthy food. It's funny. You go to the grocery store, you buy a loaf of cheap, shitty, glyphosate-laden white bread, costs you $1. But you want to buy like the good bread that's not going to kill you, costs you $5. Why is that? Kind of funny, ain't it? And in the housing market, similar situation. The cost of living goes up. People can't afford to have kids. People can't afford to raise families. People can't afford a life like their parents had, although they're working jobs. The millennial couple is making heartbreaking family decisions because of the housing market. A significant number of millennial couples are putting off having children or growing their families because they are renting properties and don't own their homes, according to a new report. Again, this is out of the UK, but similar situation in the US. The study by housing charity Shelter also found a huge drop in home ownership rates amongst millennials, down 18% from just 10 years ago. Meanwhile, the number privately renting has increased 115%, and of those, 38% have said it is stopping them from having children. Okay, that's it. That's your global depopulation agenda. How do you depopulate the world? It turns out these oligarch billionaires, they don't really need so many people anymore. Now that they got computers and robots to do all the work. Artificial intelligence, according to Henry Kissinger, you and I and people all over the world are just useless eaters. I think I live a pretty meaningful and useful life, despite the fact that I don't have a lot of money and don't have a private jet, all that stuff. But there are a lot of ways to get people from having children, a lot of ways to kill people off. You can put poison in the food. You can put poison in the water, like fluoride. You can put poison in the vaccines, like thimerosal, aka mercury. You can spray poison on airplanes, like aluminum, barium, and strontium. You can fill people's bodies, their bloodstreams, with cortisol, the stress hormone, by making their lives extremely unnecessarily difficult by jacking up the price of everything while wages stay stagnant, right? And you can decrease the population by making it damn expensive to have a family. Sad to see. Jen Ellerman chiming in, send government food boxes, right? Iris chiming in there out of London. True, here in London, nobody want to have families because nobody can afford. Yeah. Good point. Also coming out of the UK, speaking of the global depopulation agenda, the life expectancy gap between rich and poor widens, published by the BBC on February 15th. The life expectancy gap between England's richest and poorest neighborhoods has widened since 2001. A report says, on average, a boy born in one of the most affluent areas will outlive one born in one of the poorest by exactly 8.4 years. That was up from 7.2 years in 2001, the Longevity Science Panel found. The government said it was tackling the issue, I'm sure they are, and added cancer survival rates were at an all-time high. The Longevity Science Panel report said the results were concerning and required further investigation to understand the causes. But its authors said inequality was the biggest factor. No big surprise there. It turns out when you're poor and you're stuck drinking tap water, you're stuck eating cheap food filled with pesticides and additives, packaged in toxic materials, it's going to kill you quicker than somebody who's living high on the hog. Moving on to crypto news, coming out of The Verge, Coinbase are radically overcharging some users and emptying their bank accounts. Classic FUD, fear, uncertainty, and denial. Coming out of the mainstream press here. So if you're using Coinbase to do transactions, watch out for that. Coming out of Bloomberg, though, Coinbase says customers who got wrongly charged will get refunds. Again, Coinbase, the largest place where people in the U.S. buy cryptocurrencies using fiat currency. So interesting to see them getting some really bad press, and we'll see what happens with that. No shortage of news on cryptocurrencies. Let's refresh this. That's funny. I just had 3.4 million results, and now I had 2.4, so it just dropped by a million. I don't know where all those news stories went. But, you can read yourself silly on cryptocurrencies. Atari launching its own cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency mining hurting astronomers. More FUD there. Yeah, there's no shortage. It's hard to know what's going to happen. But I have to say, cryptocurrencies have had a huge comeback recently. Total market cap of the cryptocurrencies dropped below or near $300 billion. Now approaching 500 billion. Interestingly, Bitcoin recently, a couple of weeks ago, the price of a Bitcoin dropped to about $6,000. Now back up, flirting with $11,000. Big gains in all the cryptos, all the majors recently, and now we're seeing another little sell-off here. I don't know what's going to happen, but important to note, the cryptocurrencies originally designed to help us decentralize the financial system, help take the power away from the so-called trusted entities like central banks, like the too big to fail banks that got bailed out when we got sold out in the wake of the 2008-2009 financial meltdown. Steve Bulatovic chiming in there. Thank you. The crypto markets, Steve telling us it dropped to 280 billion market cap. So now it's up, 200 billion, basically doubled. No big surprise there to see the prices of a lot of these, especially Bitcoin, almost doubling in the last couple of weeks. It's a wild ride. If you want to play the crypto markets, keep your stick on the ice, be careful. And, it is, a lot of people don't really understand the decentralized nature of this, but bottom line is things like Ethereum are a decentralized, trustless contract platform, meaning we could have an entire system of government based on contracts in Ethereum, eliminating the need for, federal regulations and such. The cryptocurrencies, there are thousands of them now. According to CoinMarketCap, 1,545 cryptocurrencies at the moment. And is this the future? I don't really know, but I think that it's probably wise to put a little money into them, show a little support for the cryptocurrency world, because I'm aware of the notion of the cashless society. I'm aware of the dangers of something like that. But potentially, cryptocurrencies offer us a way to interact with one another, to create agreements with one another, to store value, transfer value, pay for things, sell things, without needing a government taxing. What do you do when you work in the U.S.? You pay, an employer pays payroll taxes, and the worker pays income taxes, right? They're taking a huge chunk of the money there, basically just, taxing somebody for employing somebody and taxing the employee for needing to work to exist. Well, what if you got paid in a cryptocurrency? How are they really going to track that if you and your employer worked out a way to pay, to transact without the government involved? So keep an eye on the cryptocurrencies. People moving in here. Blair Koenig chiming in. 1988 issue of The Economist predicts the rise of Bitcoin in 2018. Blair, that's a really good point. Interestingly, though, I don't think that let me bring this up. I don't think that they're going to use Bitcoin. I think they're going to use the special drawing right, the SDR, as their, if the globalists, if the banking cartel wants to take control of the blockchain, take control of decentralized currencies, they're going to use this puppy, the SDR, created by the IMF in 1969 as a supplementary international reserve asset. Okay, worth reading about. Check this one out. Lil Soyika saying lie. Lil, what am I lying about? Let me know. This is just my opinions here. I've seen some pretty intelligent people talking about the SDR, aka XDR. let's see, Wikipedia. Maybe they want me to say SDR. Special drawing rights, a foreign exchange currency, currency code XDR, also abbreviated XGR, SDR. Do check this out if you want more info on this, but very well could be their new global currency. I don't know. I don't think Bitcoin, Bitcoin has been hijacked in some regards. It has been made intentionally slower and less effective than it really needs to be. But key thing here, XDRs are allocated to countries by the IMF. Private parties do not hold or use them. The amount of XDRs in existence was around 21.4 billion in August 2009. During the global financial crisis of 2009, an additional 182.6 billion XDRs were allocated to provide liquidity to the global economic system and supplement member countries' official reserves. So worth reading about the SDR, aka the XDR. My guess is if the banksters want a global currency, that's what it's going to be. Maybe not Bitcoin. Matthew Ryan chiming in, lies, bitch. What am I lying about? You guys got to be more specific there. I'm going to wait for y'all to let me know what I'm lying about. And while I'm waiting for you to chime in, Ralph Shelton, have a lovely day. Ralph's going out to plant some seeds in February, right? I think you're in Idaho, aren't you, Ralph? Wild days, wild weather when you're planting seeds in Idaho in February. Anybody want their horoscope read? Lay it on me. Again, I don't really put too much stock in the horoscopes, but it's a great way to interact with all of you at the end of the show here and have a good time. So drop your horoscope requests in the comments. Jerry Wallace, the Scorpio out of Salt Lake City, said, Max never lies. He just explains better. Jerry, thank you so much. I'm not trying to misinform people. The world is crazy. I don't know everything. I'm trying to make sense of it as best I can. And let's get you Scorpio, Jerry, because I know you're tuned in. Thanks for the comment. I'm trying to be an honest, genuine human being here. There he is. Jerry, looking for Scorps. Here we go. 5-star day for you, Jerry. You seem able to integrate what you hear with your own ideas. Your ingenuity peaks, and you will come up with unusual ideas. You could be thrilled by what you hear. Be willing to open up to an associate, but only if you trust him or her. Tonight, think ahead to tomorrow. And this week, Jerry, do not push someone too hard unless you want him or her to quit. There we go. Iris, I got Scorpio for you too. Back to Bitcoin briefly. Blair Koenig chiming in. Bitcoin will require a lot of energy too, I believe. Yeah, valid point there. Valid point. Luckily, we humans have developed ways to create energy without burning fossil fuels. Unfortunately, those technologies have been suppressed for a very long time. Fortunately, the fine folks in Iceland, where they get most of their power through geothermal and hydroelectric power, are going to be mining a lot of cryptocurrencies in the future here. Jen Ellerman chiming in, looking for Gemini. Thank you so much for tuning in, Jen. 4-star day. Let your ideas emerge, but don't feel that you have to share them with everyone. Listen to others' comments for words of wisdom, or at least a helpful suggestion or two. Your ability to accept feedback and criticism will be remembered. Tonight, have some fun out on the town. This week, by Thursday, the moon in your sign puts the focus on you. So there you go, Jen. Carrie Mack, I got Gemini for you too. Let's see. What else do we need? Susan Hamilton looking for Taurus. I'm a Taurus too. Let's see how we're doing according to Jacqueline Begar and the stars. 4-star day. You enter a period where you are more likely to succeed with any project you have in mind. I hope that's true. Always get feedback from a trusted advisor. You will only improve whatever you are about to launch. A friend will come through for you. Tonight, celebrate the night away. And this week, not until late Tuesday will you feel up to snuff. So, Sue, hold out there till Tuesday. We're going to be all right. Chris Void looking for a recap. Chris, thank you so much for tuning in. Recap, just watch it from the beginning, brother. It'll post over there at Wake Up News pretty soon. Julie Howlett got Taurus. Carrie Mack chiming me and calling me a know-it-all. Thanks. I'm just trying. Like I said, the world's crazy. I'm trying to make sense of it, trying to share that with all y'all, but easier said than done. Tony Ramsey and Blair Koenig looking for Virgo. Here we go. 4-star day. Keep reaching out for more information. You might feel as if there is something left to say in a conversation with a loved one. This person probably didn't act or respond in a way that you were expected. I think they forgot the word the way that you were expected, which could upset you. Handle this matter as soon as possible. Tonight, out and about, and this week, take a few days off. There you go, Blair. There you go, Tony. Chris Void chiming in looking for cancer from the UK. Thanks for tuning in, Chris. Again, just replay the video from the beginning. I know it's long, probably the most boring show on the internet, but the news, at best, the news is boring. At worst, it's downright terrifying and misleading. 4-star day for you, Chris. You might feel as if you have little control if you just go along with others' ideas. Present a suggestion or two of your own and get some feedback. You are likely to have some strong opinions about what is being said. Don't allow negativity to get to you. Good advice. Tonight, out late, and this week, Chris, taking the big picture. Dylan Martell looking for Pisces. Dylan playing the guitar there, rocking a beautiful mustache. Pisces coming at you, sir. 4-star day for you, Dylan. You are full of ideas and energy, but don't feel as if you have to produce them immediately. Start sharing some of the personal issues you have been mulling over with a sibling and or a dear friend. The feedback you get could surprise you. Tonight, get some extra Z's, Dylan. And this week, keep a closer eye on your finances. Taylor Jr., what's up, Taylor? Thanks for tuning in. Gemini, coming at you. Let's see, Taylor, also rocking the luscious stash there. 4-star day. Let your ideas emerge, but don't feel that you have to share them with everyone. I already read this one, but I'll read it again for you, Taylor. Listen to others' comments for words of wisdom, or at least a helpful suggestion or two. Your ability to accept feedback and criticism will be remembered. Tonight, have some fun out on the town. And this week, by Thursday, the moon in your sign puts the focus on you. So, Taylor, enjoy that focus. Justin Stockbridge wanted Gemini too. There you go, Justin. Mark Pirata chiming in about the drought in California. Winter is over here, going to be another drought. All the trees are blooming, right? And strangely, no shortage of geoengineering evidence in the skies over the Pacific Ocean and California. Sue Green, my most recent Patreon subscriber. Sue, thank you so much. Pledging $3 per month. Huge help. If I could get 300 people pledging $300 a month or $3 a month, that would be $900. That would cover my costs. So anybody want to pony up, follow Sue's example. I got 21 Patreon subs, and Sue, the most recent one. Also, if you need a quilt made, Sue Green over there in Boise, Idaho, makes the best quilts. I got one on my bed and sleep like a baby every night, thanks to Sue Green. 4-star day for you, Sue. Thanks again. You are more likely to say what you mean right now, and you also will not hesitate to ask for more of what you want. Your friends and loved ones seem to like this openness. They will find you more authentic and fun to be around. Tonight, invite others over for dinner. And Sue, this week, allow your creativity to mix with your need for security. Thanks. There we go. I got you, Gemini, already, Taylor. Iris, you have an amazing evening too. Thank you so much. Geo Folds, what's up, Geo? Thanks for tuning in. Leo, coming at you, brother. Love your presence there in the comments as always. 4-star day for you, Geo. Your smile, Geo, melts another person's resistance. Ain't that the truth? I should smile more on this show. You know that all is well that ends well. If you're just feeling misunderstood, detach and try to see the big picture. Just be yourself, and everything will fall into place. Tonight, spend some quality time with a friend. And this week, Geo, you have a clear vision of what could happen. Moving on, got Virgo. Melissa Stanford looking for Taurus. I already read Taurus. I'll put that one up on the screen for you so you can read it if you missed it. Moving through the comments, kind of bogged down with comments, but I love seeing so many of them. Blair Koenig chiming in. Thank you, Blair. I'm going to read your comment because it looks great. I have been following Max since Standing Wrong. That's true. I was out there. I will tell y'all what, some of these kids that are still around and do live feeds and shit, holy moly, they have some wicked spells casted on them. They spit garbage. Wake Up News is legit. Thank you, Blair. We try to be as legit as possible. Again, important to note, Wake Up News doesn't really make any money. We don't really have, we've got 15 admins. Lee Camp is an admin, but he doesn't really, we don't have like an administrative team. We don't have like an editorial team. So not everything was basically just on the trust of the people involved with it. So if you see something on Wake Up News you don't agree with, maybe I posted it, maybe somebody else posted it. I don't know. It's a lot of people working on things, doing it relatively for free out of the kindness of their hearts. And, we try to keep an eye on everything. We try to be as legit as possible. So if we post something you don't like, let us know. Send us a message, or, send me a message directly. We get so many messages to the page. We got 530,000 likes. And a lot of messages come in. So if you want to get in touch with me, you got any feedback for me, add me as a friend, send me a message directly, and I will read it. Capricorn, 4-star day for you, Ezequiel Flores. Thank you for tuning in. You are more likely to say what you mean right now, and you also will not hesitate to ask for more of what you want. Your friends and loved ones seem to like this openness. They will find you more authentic and fun to be around. Tonight, invite others over for dinner. This week, Ezequiel, allow your creativity to mix with your need for security. Melissa Stanford, I got Taurus for you. Julie Howlett's got to go poo. Have fun with that. Enjoy it. You might as well enjoy your poos. Carolyn Landis Lowry, Leo, coming at you with the Leo. I think I already read that one, so I'm just going to put it up. No, I think I haven't read that one. It's funny, I have a pretty good memory, but not when it comes to scopes. Yeah, I read that one. So there it is. Cancer. Tyler Andrew looking for Scorpio. Already read that one. Cheers to you, Geofolds. Thank you so much. Taylor Phillips asking, what's your channel about? Well, we go through the news. You're looking for Gemini. I think I already read that one, so I'll put it up on the screen for you, Taylor. Thanks for tuning in. If you missed the beginning of the show, you can rewatch it again. Carrie Mack says you have a well-rounded newscast. Thank you. Much love to you, Josh Andres. Thank you so much, sir. Let's Kendra Lawrence says, so people tune in, you read their horoscope. I do that at the end of the show, Kendra. Ryan Tellensru said, just came scrolling through, love it, now following. Right on. Thanks for following there. And people chiming in there in the comments. Kendra, thank you so much for tuning in. Caroline Landris Lowry, thank you for tuning in. And on that, we're through the scopes. We're out for today. Thank you all so much for tuning in here at Wake Up Wyoming. It's February 18th, 2018. I'm going to get some work done. I am going to go out and enjoy my day and encourage all y'all to do the same. Again, avalanche danger here in the mountains of Idaho high. So do be careful if you're going out there in the mountains. Sadly, we had an avalanche fatality yesterday just south of the Jackson Hole Mountain Resort boundary. So stay safe out there. Everybody, regardless of what you're doing, stay awake, stay aware, stay optimistic. Take care of yourself above all else, and take care of the people you love to the best of your ability, because we are living through some wild times. And remember, you can spend all day, every day, trying to make sense of the world, trying to dissect the weaponized information, trying to separate the ice cream from the bullshit, as my old boss, Michael C. Rupert, used to say when it comes to analyzing the mainstream news. But bottom line is, it's a wild world, and it's getting wilder every day. So do your best to keep it in check. Take care of yourself, your loved ones, and y'all take